Hey friends, and welcome to week 6 of the Pantry Challenge. If you're new here, my name is Morgan and you are on my homestead here in Wyoming, where we have been partaking in the Three Rivers Homestead Pantry Challenge since the first day of January all the way through now. Now, the great part about the Pantry Challenge is you're able to set your own rules. And with that, I gave myself a $40 grocery budget for fresh produce on week 6 of the Pantry Challenge. Now, I'm comfortable using that budget from week 6 on through week 8. I still have, including this week, 3 weeks to go. But we love to eat fresh and healthy and lighter, yummy foods. So with that, I went ahead and went to the grocery store and got just what you see here. So I did want to run you through prices. I always find prices to be super interesting in other places. So this is what our prices are here in Wyoming. First thing I got is 4 bananas. These were 83 cents. These are organic bananas. Next, I got 2 containers of strawberries. These were $1.50 each. So in total, that was $2.98, a little less than $1.50. Then I got a 5-pound bag of mandarin oranges. So this is a ton of mandarin oranges. This was $4.97. Then spinach, this bag is 10 ounces, and this was $2.29. Then I got 3 avocados. They were 88 cents each. So in total, this was $2.67. And what I like to do with my avocados is normally they come from the store and they are rock hard. So I will leave them out on the counter for just a couple days. And when they finally start getting a little, almost to the point of ripeness that I like, I pop them in the fridge and they will last for forever. So that's kind of my tip for keeping avocados good for a couple of weeks. I think we ate avocados in week 4 of the Pantry Challenge, and that's how I kept those good for so long. Then we got 5 tomatoes on the vine. These were $3.61. I got some organic cilantro. This was $1.69. Then we got 3 organic apples. These are Fiji apples and they are huge. These were $3.62, so just a little over $1 each. And finally, I got a bag of romaine lettuce. This was $5. So in total, I spent $27.66 on these items. So that's just some pricing in Wyoming. If you're curious, I would love for you to share down in the comments, what would a haul like this look cost-wise in your neck of the woods? What would this run you? I find it so interesting how different grocery prices are from place to place. And every time we travel, the first thing I want to do is go to the grocery store and take a look at what prices are and what they have. I think it's so fun. Okay. I'm going to get these items put away and then we are going to get going on some dinner. Okay, so the other night I was perusing the internet for some ideas for dinners. Sometimes I just get stuck in these ruts where I can't think of what I want to make. And I came across this Chipotle. It was baked potatoes and a Chipotle honey steak with sour cream on top. And I thought it sounded really, really good. So we're going to try giving it a go. This came from, it was called Stealth Health Life on the internet. So we're going to try it. So first thing I needed 3 adobo peppers, a tablespoon of their adobo sauce. Then I need a teaspoon of garlic and 2 teaspoons of honey. We'll say that's 2 teaspoons of honey. And garlic, I don't feel like peeling it. I'm going for an easy dinner, so this is garlic from our garden. We'll call that good. We can always adjust. And then salt and pepper to taste. And then it said a handful of cilantro stems, which I thought was pretty interesting. I've never done that before, so I'm just gonna cut these cilantro stems and throw them in, and if we need more, we can add more. All right, then it also said to top it with some milk. How do I feel about the milk? I don't know that I feel great about it. It feels weird. But I'm gonna trust the process. I'm just gonna do, I don't know, that much milk. And this is a marinade. I forgot to mention that. So we're gonna soak our steak in this for a little while. All right, let's see if that will blend. Okay, blended a lot easier than I thought it would. Ooh, that smells really good. Let me grab a spoon. Gonna give this a little taste, just off the lid. Oh, wow. Okay, that's really good. I'm gonna do a little more agave. And we're there. I'm just gonna pull this spoon out of the chipotles and mix that in. Okay. Well, that was phenomenal. All right, so next I wanna get my meat marinating, and I'm just gonna let it sit for like 30 minutes. It's already 5:20. So I don't wanna wait too long because we'll be pretty hungry. We're just going to lay these out on this sheet pan, or on this cute little pan I have. Try to get everyone to fit. All right, and then I'm just going to drizzle this marinade over our meat. And I'm gonna scrape this out. We wanna make sure we're getting every last drop. That is so, so yummy. Perfect, and now that I've got the tops covered, I'm actually gonna grab a fork. I'm gonna just do a little flip just to get the bottoms covered as well. Awesome, we're gonna just leave this and let this marinate for a little bit, and while this marinates, we're gonna get going on some potatoes. All right, here we go on our potatoes. So these are just garden potatoes that we grew together last garden season. And these are starting to grow eyes. They're still in beautiful condition though. So I am gonna peel them just because they're still perfectly good. They're just not pristine anymore. And I'm doing I'm doing two varieties of potatoes. So I want them to all look kind of uniform when they're in there, but you are more than welcome to leave your skin on if your potatoes are looking a little bit better than mine. So I'm just gonna peel these. You can see this one's got some good eyes on it. This is the one that's in probably the worst condition, but still totally fine. I'm really doing a really good job of missing this bowl, aren't I? All right. Let's get this cleaned up. I made quite the mess. And then I'm just going to cut mine into nice little cubes. They don't need to be even or perfect. This is just for my family. They won't judge my potatoes. You want them relatively equal in size. That way they cook up at the same rate, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just gonna put these back in the colander. That way I can rewash them since they were still a little bit dirty. And this is kind of the size potato I'm going for, but if you make this meal, you do whatever you want. All right, here's my potatoes. I'm gonna go give these a wash, and then into our boiling water these are gonna go. And we're just gonna cook these for like 5-ish minutes in here. We're just trying to get them not soft, but like starting to cook. You know what, you guys? I am just goof. I'm a real goof. I just looked back at that recipe and I made the sauce as my marinade, but luckily we know it's really yummy, so I'm not super torn up about it. I was thinking about it because I was like, that milk just seems so weird. It's not weird. Sam uses milk as a tenderizer and to take some of the blood out of our wild game. sometimes with like goose and that kind of meat. So I was thinking about it. I was like, that's actually really smart. But I used the sauce as the marinade, so I'm just going to make more sauce and we'll top it with that. Rather than the milk, you were just supposed to use avocado oil. Basically the same thing, just avocado oil. So I'm just remaking this sauce. I still have the meat soaking in that marinade. That's no problem, but we're going to want some sauce to top this bowl with, so I'm going to use this. It's funny, I had just gotten literally everything cleaned up too when I had the epiphany of what I had done, but you know what? That's fine. Luckily, I had all the ingredients out still, just the equipment was put away. And we actually have enough stuff to make it. I'm going to put a little milk in this to rinse it out. Helped a little. All right, we're going to give this a blend. And then we have our sauce ready to go too. All right, so our potatoes boiled for 5 minutes. I'm going to put them on a cookie sheet. And all that's going to do is just really help crispen them up. So I'm just going to pat these completely dry. And then to these potatoes, we're just going to do some olive oil. Some salt. And pepper. A little paprika. I learned too, if you hold this plastic and twist, your seasonings come out a lot easier. And some garlic powder. Just gonna mix that, bake these at 425 degrees. So right as it was about time to get the meat going is when Sam got home. So he jumped over and started getting the cast iron ready. We love this cast iron grill pan, and he thinks every good recipe always starts with butter. So threw some butter down and then added in the steaks. I will say these steaks were absolutely phenomenal. Even if you use this marinade for something else and don't just put it on potatoes, this was one of the best marinades we have ever had, and Sam cooked the steaks to absolute perfection. He did so well on these. So we like to just cook our steaks on a really hot grill pan, and then once we think it's starting to get close, we use an instant read thermometer, and Sam likes his at a medium rare, so we normally take his steaks off around 127 degrees Fahrenheit, let it rest for about 5 minutes, and that will give him that perfect medium rare. And then I like mine cooked to medium, so we'll just let mine sit on the grill or the grill pan for just a little bit longer. So normally we take Sam's off, then by the time his are off, we can go ahead and take mine off, and it actually works so well. Everyone gets the perfect cook on their meat. So when you're cutting a nice steak, definitely always make sure you are cutting against the grain, meaning the grain is running vertically versus horizontally, and that will give you that really nice tender piece of steak meat. So here we're just slicing it up. Then once that is done, we top it our potatoes with our steak. I will say boiling the potatoes first and then putting them in the oven gave us the perfect crispy breakfast potato. These were so phenomenal, crunchy, and just exactly how we like them. Then we just put a little bit of that sauce on top, some sour cream, and top it with cilantro. I will say the sauce isn't spicy, but it's a little bit smoky. So if you have kids, this might be a little bit too hot for them, but it was so yummy. This is definitely going on our regular rotation. We loved it. Good morning, friend. We are going to get going on just a quick little breakfast. I was craving a smoothie this morning. I thought that sounded so good. And with some of that spinach we have, it's going to be super yummy. So I'm going to do about a cup of peaches. Again, these are those Palisade peaches from, I almost said Costco, from Colorado last summer. Then I'm going to add in the equivalent to 1 banana, and we'll throw this little piece in. And because the fruit is frozen, we don't need to add in any ice. Then I'm gonna have some spinach in here. This is triple washed, so no need to wash it. Then we're gonna do a little bit of agave. Whoa, wow, that was a nice catch. a little agave just to sweeten it up. And some milk. I would put in, if you have it, protein powder or a protein of some sort. We'll try that much. I don't have any, but I do have some chia seeds, so I should not have done that. I'm gonna do about 2 tablespoons because that is 5 grams of protein. And then obviously we'll get some protein from the milk as well. You can throw in nut butter, you can do protein powder, whatever you want. Let's get this blending. All right, I'm gonna go enjoy my smoothie. Friend, welcome back. I literally just walked in the door. It's been a crazy day and I need to get dinner going right away. So today we're gonna do a spin on that feta tomato pasta. I have a ton of cherry tomatoes that I just popped into the freezer as they came in from the garden. And then I also got this cheese. It was on sale. I'm not sure what the original price was, but I got it on sale a while back and just have had this in my freezer. And I know it probably won't defrost perfectly for cheese and cracker type situation, but I think it will defrost perfectly for this type of application. So what I'm gonna do is get this cheese and take it out of its container. And we're gonna put that right in the middle. And then there's some just on here, so oops. I'm gonna scrape that off. This stuff is so, so good. Smells so good. Okay. And this is the garlic and herb flavor. So now I'm just going to take my cherry tomatoes from the garden and I'm gonna just line this dish. Nice save, Morgan. With a good amount of tomatoes. It's perfect. And then I want to, I don't know that I'm gonna salt it because this is already a salty cheese. I am gonna pepper it. Sprinkle a little thyme. And then I'm gonna pop this in a 400-degree oven and we're gonna let this bake for about 30 or so minutes. And while that bakes, that gives me time to get my life straightened out and get my chicken going. So into the oven, this goes. So for this meal, the sauce is such a highlight. I wanted to make sure to keep the flavors very simple on the chicken. So all I did was just salt and peppered one side of the chicken, and then to the pan, I like to throw a little water in. If the water beads up, you know your pan is hot enough to add in some oils. So I just added in some olive oil, let that come up to temperature for just a minute or so, and then I added in the chicken. When I add the chicken in, I put it seasoned side down. That way I can go ahead and put salt and pepper on the side that I haven't seasoned yet. And this makes it really easy, keeps my cutting board a little bit cleaner, even though it's covered in chicken. It just makes it a lot easier. I don't have to clean up salt or pepper off of the counter. So I go ahead and top those with our salt and pepper and just let that sit and cook away for a couple of minutes. At that point, I had the epiphany that I forgot to put garlic in this sauce, which is so important. It makes it so, so yummy. So I just added in 3 cloves of garlic at this point, and it actually worked out perfectly because you want your garlic to go in later so it doesn't burn, especially because I wasn't wrapping mine up in foil. So I just threw those right on in there and then it worked out perfect. I guess I did 4, not 3. So then I put that back in the oven, let that finish roasting, which actually worked out perfect for timing wise with the garlic. The garlic was perfectly cooked. So then I am going in and just flipping the chicken as each piece looks ready. I know this is a fish spatula, I think is what it's called, but I love it for just cooking things like this in a pan. I then pulled out the 2 smaller pieces of chicken because they were done earlier than the larger pieces. And you can see here, I started cutting the chicken and then realized I was cutting with the grain, not against the grain. So flip directions to make sure I was cutting against the grain drain in order to get a nice tender piece of chicken. Then I wanted to deglaze the pan, make sure that we're getting all those brown bits up. That's where a lot of that umami flavor is. So I am just going to put in some cold chicken broth. I just have the heat off. It's just a hot surface at this point, and we'll scrape that down with a wooden spoon. Then I add in a good amount of spinach, and I honestly wish I added in a little bit more. Spinach is so hard to judge because it just cooks down so dang much. It's really, really hard to judge how much you're going to need. So I probably would have finished off that bag had I have known it was going to be as little as it actually was. So I'm just letting that cook in the residual heat of the chicken broth. And then once that was all wilted, I just mixed together my cheese sauce and tomatoes, dumped that in, and then gave it a quick stir. And here is where it is so darn nice to have a husband that is willing to help in the kitchen. Sam jumped in and took over stirring. That way I could get the pasta ready to go into the sauce. So while he was combining that spinach into the cheese and tomato mixture, I was spooning in the pasta and he was mixing it in. Honestly, it just makes the work so much easier. It's not necessary, but I think it's so much more fun having someone in the kitchen with you to help finish up dinner. He can throw in his ideas. It turned out so perfectly. So here you can see I was using spiral noodles and penne, and that's because I had a half a box of each, and this is Pantry Challenge, so I wanted to use it up. I cooked the penne for about 5 minutes and then added in the spiral noodles just because those cook so much faster, and that worked perfect. Everything was perfectly al dente. We threw in the chicken, gave that a nice mix, topped it with some Parmesan, and this was our dinner. It was so, so yummy. Good morning. It is the next morning and it is Saturday morning, so we wanted to make a fun little treat, and we decided to use this donut mix that we got for Christmas and some of our maple sausage that we got from the porks that we raised. So here I'm just following the instructions on the back of the box. I just mix in 1 egg along with some melted butter, a little bit of milk, and the packaged ingredients. These were gluten-free and they were honestly so, so good. I know a lot of times gluten-free things tend to be a bit more dense, but these were so light and fluffy, and we ate them all. They were so darn good. So you can see Sneaky Arrow here trying to get a whiff of our dry ingredients. But once I got the dry ingredients mixed into the wet ingredients, I then added in the butter. Our butter was hot because we went ahead and just melted it in the microwave, and I didn't want it to scramble the eggs. So I was putting that off as long as I possibly could to help let that butter cool down. Then when I was adding the butter in, I made sure to continuously stir just to try to help minimize our chances of scrambling those eggs. But we did it just fine. It worked out perfectly. Once I got this all mixed up, I then add the mixture into a piping bag. And the piping bag, I will say, it always works great. I didn't realize that I had a thick bottom piping bag. So rather than just, the regular, my piping bag had 2 bottoms. I don't know if you can see it here, but when I cut the hole in the piping bag, I cut 2 holes by accident because of that thick bottom, and things got a little bit wild, but we were fine. We were able to recover. It was no problem. So here I'm just going to spoon this batter into my Ziploc bag, and you can kind of see here how it is that wide bottom Ziploc bag. So definitely I would use a sandwich bag next time. I don't know if all Ziploc bags are like this these days, but I will definitely be using a sandwich bag if I do this again, which I think we will. These were so good. So then I am just spraying my donut tin. We also got this for Christmas. It was a super, super fun stocking stuffer. Trimming off that corner, and there is where I realized I trimmed 2 holes, but it was no problem. We were able to recover. So this was a very thick batter. All I'm doing is just piping it in, but you can see it was kind of hard to work with because of how thick it was. Then I realized how much was coming out of that second hole. I was then able to put my finger over it, and we were able to kind of block it, so it wasn't a problem for any of the others. So like I said, smooth recovery, but it was just a little bit of a wild ride at the beginning of this. So just piping it in. Like I said, I recommend doing 2 layers. This was the perfect amount if you have this donut tin. I will link it down below. And it worked out perfectly. The donuts were the perfect size. And I was talking to my mother-in-law. She said she just did 1 layer and her donuts turned out to be a little bit small. So definitely I would recommend doing 2 layers in each of them. So here I'm just cleaning it up, trying to make my donuts look nice and smooth, which turned out not to be necessary. The batter does a pretty good job of melting and flattening out in the oven, so the donuts came out absolutely beautiful. Here, Sam then jumped in and did our meat cooking. We just like to put it on kind of a medium heat, add in a little bit of water, spread the sausage links apart, and then we just top it with a lid for a couple of minutes. That just helps get the inside cooked versus just browning the outside. I find breakfast sausage can be kind of hard to cook because sometimes the outside gets so brown and the inside's not done. So we have found adding water makes that a heck of a lot easier. Then at this point, I am just running a knife around the outside to help loosen them up so they will come out. I had no problem with sticking, which I was a little bit nervous of. And in order to add topping to it, you were supposed to put all of the topping in a bowl, melt butter, top the top of the donuts with butter, and then dunk them in the cinnamon sugar topping. But I felt like they gave us a ton of topping and I didn't want it to go to waste. Me being me, I wanted to make sure that if there was some left over, we were able to use it for future projects. So I just sprinkled it on top. You can see there's so much topping in here. I felt if we were dunking the donuts, there was going to be a ton wasted. So I like to just sprinkle it on top. That way I could collect everything that fell out, and I just saved the additional topping for a rainy day. Here was a look at our final breakfast. Like I said, we ate all of these donuts, all of them sausage. It was phenomenal. All right, friend, we got back from a 10-mile hike with our goats today, and so are a little tired. I just clearly got out of the shower. We were gonna make dinner, but we're gonna have a slight change of plans because Sam and I are both exhausted from today. So we had a big breakfast that sustained us for the entire day. We just skipped over lunch because we were out hiking, had some water, and we are going to make a frozen pizza and cut up a grapefruit for dinner. That is it. We are keeping it real around here tonight. So I'm going to get this pizza going and we will see you next time we're in the kitchen. Here was our super elegant dinner. I like to just run a knife around each of the sections of the grapefruit and scoop it out with a spoon. Good morning. It is the next morning and we are going to get going on breakfast. So for breakfast, we are going to make crepes and put together like a peach compote syrup type situation with our peaches from Palisade that we got in Colorado last summer. So let's get going on our breakfast. I recently just got that coffee mug I was holding for a gift, and I think it is so stinking cute. It says, "My girls make me breakfast," and it has some chickens and some eggs on it, so I absolutely love that. But for these crepes, we are just making a very simple batter, and the greatest part is you're able to do it in a blender and save a ton of dishes. So I actually made a double batch because I find crepes, I didn't think they were that filling, but after eating all of these, they were incredibly filling. I just didn't think they were going to be. So for this, I used 4 cups of milk. Then to the milk, we are adding in 6 eggs, and my chickens have started laying again. I'm getting an average of about 5 eggs per day. So this is the perfect meal to make if you are trying to use up chicken eggs. I had no idea that there was so many eggs in crepes. Then to that, I am adding in a half a teaspoon of salt, and along with that, 2 tablespoons of vanilla and 2 teaspoons of white sugar. Then once I had that in, I added in 4 tablespoons, which is equivalent to 1/4 of a cup of oil. I just already had my spoons dirty, and so I wanted to make sure to get as few dishes as possible. At this point, our dishwasher was broken, and so we were waiting for our new one, so I saved dishes as much as I possibly could, and doing so, I did 4 tablespoons instead of 1/4 of a cup. Then I also add in 3.5 cups of, I just used white flour here. I really think if you're gluten-free, you could easily swap this out for gluten-free flour because you don't really need it to rise or do anything fancy. Crepes are super thin and delicate, and I think gluten-free flour would work just fine. So if you give it a try, definitely let me know how that goes down in the comments. But I think next time I make them, that is something I am going to do. These crepes were seriously that easy. That is all of the ingredients that we add in. So then I just go ahead and blend this up for a minute or so. If you are using a blender, make sure that you put your wet ingredients in the bottom and then put your dry ingredients in on top, and that helps prevent any sticking of the flour. I didn't have to scrape this down at all. As soon as I turned off the blender, the batter was ready to go. So once the batter's all mixed, you're going to want to let it rest for 10 minutes, and then we are ready to get going on our crepes. Now, crepes are a little bit hard. I grew up making crepes with my grandma. We called them Norwegian pancakes. They're a little bit different, but very similar. And she actually had a crepe maker that made this so easy, but I'm not quite that fancy yet. I just used a regular nonstick frying pan, and it just kind of uses a swirling motion. I will say none of my crepes turned out 100% beautiful. I have not mastered that swirling motion, but they all tasted absolutely phenomenal, so it was not a problem. Crepes like this for me are very nostalgic. Like I said, my grandma always made them growing up, and she would make them for all of us kids. She would put butter and white sugar on them, and we would eat probably hundreds of them. They were so good. We were always so excited to go to my grandma's house because we got crepes for breakfast, and they were absolutely amazing. So this is a fun meal, just thinking of her. And for our peach topping, all I'm doing is just putting a good amount of frozen peaches in. I added in a little bit of salt, some lemon juice, and you can just measure all of these things with your heart. I probably did a little over a tablespoon of lemon juice and just a sprinkle of sugar. We didn't want ours to be super sweet, so this ended up being perfect, and then just let that cook down and reduce. I will say it reduces significantly, so if you want enough for all of these crepes, I would probably double what I did. Here's a look at our final crepes. I didn't realize how many this was going to make. We have a ton of crepes and I've been enjoying them all week, but we just topped them with that peach, a little bit of butter, and it was so good. All right, friend, I was cleaning up from breakfast and I decided I already have this pan dirty, but not really dirty because we just made the crepes on it. And I want to get going on dinner for tonight. So this is a moose roast. And this has just been defrosting in the fridge for a couple of days. Let's get this out of its paper. And all I'm gonna do is just season this side, and then we're gonna put this side down in the pan. So good amount of salt. This is a huge piece of meat. And a good amount of pepper. Now let's go get this in the pan, and we're gonna just sear it on all of the sides. Okay, so moose is a very lean meat, so I'm gonna add in some oil. So you can start getting that meat nice and browned. And then I'm gonna take my roast and I'm gonna put it seasoned side down. And just let this sear for a couple minutes. And while that happens, I'm gonna salt this next side. All right, so into our crock pot, we're gonna add 1 can of beef broth. I'm gonna add in 1 cup of red wine. This is 250 milliliters, so I'm gonna use pretty much the whole thing. Perfect. Then I have 6 cloves of garlic and 2 onions. Chopped up, it's gonna go in. I need about 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. I always do a little more. We'll call that good. I'm gonna put in 2 bay leaves. 1, 2, that one was little, let's do 3. We need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. This is my favorite because you don't have to use the whole thing at once. I just get it at Smith's. So there's 1 tablespoon. 2 tablespoons, it's a little more, but that's okay. And then we're gonna sprinkle in some thyme and just let this cook away. I like to get it mixed in so it's all in the liquid. All right, we're gonna let this cook on high for about 6 hours. All right, friend, so today is Super Bowl Sunday, and we just have finished up getting some projects done around the property, and I wanted to make a little snack. Now, obviously, oopsie, with the pantry challenge, we're not low on food, but a lot of the food requires a lot more prep than normal. But I wanted kind of a quick little appetizer, healthier side of things. So we are gonna make a quick little guacamole. And I do have some tomatoes from our last time we went to the grocery store. And then I also have some avocados. So I figured, and I have a garden onion, I have a little bit of cilantro, some lime juice, salt and pepper. I figured, what better thing to make than a quick little pico type guacamole. So I'm just going to get all of my tomatoes sliced up. And I mean, the game is on. So our project went longer than we anticipated, which isn't that how all projects go? We were putting a cat door in for our barn cats so that they can get into the garage. That's where we feed them, and we wanted them to be able to get in and out. We've just been leaving the door open, but obviously that doesn't help with the mouse population. So we went ahead and installed a cat door for them. But with every project, I feel it had its own set of challenges. It turned out our door was metal, not wood, which is great for insulation and for cold winters, but made that project just a little bit more complicated. So we're a little bit behind. And I must say, I love the simplicity of guacamole and just how yummy but simple it is. And I have found that if I keep so this is just a damp paper towel in a plastic bag. If I keep my cilantro that way, it lasts. I mean, this is over a week old and it's still looking absolutely beautiful. So if you struggle preserving or storing fresh herbs, maybe try doing that. See if that helps make it any easier. Okay, there's our cilantro going in. And my onion is very messy, very dirty. So I want to put that in, or cut that up very last. Again, I've got 2 avocados here. I have 1 more in the fridge, but I want to save that for, honestly, I don't know. These are beautiful. So the way I store my avocados is I leave them out on the counter, and as soon as they're about a day or so from being, probably a day or 2 from being the ripeness that I want them to be, I then pop them in the refrigerator. And at that point, they ripen very, very slowly. And so I can keep avocados in the refrigerator for like 3 weeks at a time. Makes that so, so simple. So I just pop these in the refrigerator. Let me get out fork, and they will just store and last for so long. So that is my preferred method for avocados. And then I do like a heat element, but we don't have any fresh jalapenos, but we do have these pickled jalapenos from the garden. So I thought those would be a perfect substitution. They'll add a nice zing. And then if they aren't hot enough, then I will just add a little bit of cayenne pepper as well. A fun little fact about Wyoming is we don't have any professional sports teams in the entire state. We have some semi-professional and obviously college, but we don't have any professional. So I honestly kind of like it because there's literally no pressure on our sports teams because we don't have any. So I know oftentimes a lot of people will cheer for the Broncos just because they are the next closest team, but kind of makes things a little stress-free, especially in the football seasons. We just don't really care because we don't have a team. Okay, there's my jalapenos. I'm gonna get these cut up, and I'll leave these in decent sized pieces just so you can actually taste them. All right, then finally I just have this onion. And this is one of our little onions from the garden, but it's literally the perfect size for what I need. Which I must say is sometimes fun about gardening is you get all sorts of sized things. So sometimes you get that perfect size little tiny onion for what you need. Nothing goes to waste. All right, I'm gonna get this cut up. So here is the guacamole. Again, it's a little untraditional, but I think it's gonna be perfect. To it, I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a sprinkle of cayenne. You can leave that out if you don't like spice. And then a little bit of lime juice. Get that all mixed in. All right, and just like that, we have our beautiful Super Bowl Sunday guacamole. Here is our final pot roast. I added in some carrots, potatoes, and a spoonful of horseradish in that last hour to cook down. This was so, so good. Friend, that is it for week 6 of the Pantry Challenge. We are heading into week 7, which is absolutely crazy, and I am still loving it. Our dinner last night, that pot roast was phenomenal. You will see in the footage that it switched from the crock pot in the morning to the Dutch oven in the evening, and that is because once I added in the carrots and potatoes, my crock pot was way too full. It was overflowing, I couldn't stir it, so I just moved it into a Dutch oven and cooked it on the stove the rest of the way. And if you've never tried it, adding in about 2 tablespoons of raw horseradish into your pot roast about an hour or 2 before it's done cooking, absolute game changer. It's not spicy at all. It just adds a nice, like, deep, peppery flavor. It was so, so good. So I hope you enjoyed this week of the Pantry Challenge. We have a ton of exciting recipes coming up in week 7. So if you have not yet, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. If you liked today's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and I will catch you next week for week 7 of the Pantry Challenge. Thanks for being here. Bye, friend.